Far above the ruined world, the last of humanity lived in a floating city called Miss Gun. Kanata and the others attended school in the Sky Wizard Division. One day, Chloe met with Freya to deliver documents regarding Fireteam E601, a squad made up of lower-class students. The first member was Rico. Chloe asked if Rico had issues with delusions, but Freya told her not to question it and simply read the documents. Rico ranked near the bottom of the Sky Wizard Division. People even labeled her class as Class F due to their poor performance. The general public considered someone like her a failure, but Rico believed herself to be a goddess hero destined to save the world. Chloe noted that Rico's 3 requests for resubmission had been rejected, with the comment that instead of apologizing for missing tasks, Rico should have apologized for not completing her homework. The second member was Lekti. She was a girl who dreamed of becoming a sky wizard to protect the people of Miss Gun by fighting the demon beetles. Although she admitted the thought frightened her to the point of shivering, she found joy in the idea of protecting others. Lekti was seen as someone very responsible. However, Freya commented that kind-hearted children were often the ones to fall first. Those without magic were fated to lose their memories after being killed by the beetles. That was why Lekti wanted to fight for those who had already lost everything. She was easily nervous and anxious, and her entrance exam results were poor. Still, Lekti came from a family known for their twin-blade magic sword style, and her sincerity could not be overlooked. She hoped her future as a sky wizard would shine brightly. The final member of Fireteam E601 was their leader, Miss Aura. In her very first semester during practice exams, she lost 57 times and never secured a single victory. In the following evaluations, she lost 10 more times without a single win. During her second semester, the losses continued and she was defeated 57 more times, bringing her record to 124 consecutive defeats. In short, Miss Aura was recommended to voluntarily withdraw from the academy. Chloe suspected that Miss Aura was struggling with obstacles she could not overcome. Rico, Lekti, and Miss Aura were considered the weakest group in Fireteam history, earning Fireteam E601 the title of the worst. Freya asked Chloe to do something about them. Chloe admitted that it seemed normal instructors were not able to help. Freya warned her that this was not just a request, but an order. As the head of the Sky Wizard Division, me and Chloe had no choice but to accept. Meanwhile, Lloyd spotted Kanata in the storage room and asked what he was doing. Kanata tossed a book toward Lloyd and explained that he was checking the warehouse inventory and comparing it with a supply list. He mentioned that something felt off with the food records and suspected that some of the rough Machina divisions might have taken things, so he gave them a warning in his own way. Lloyd was surprised that Kanata was actually checking everything by himself. Kanata admitted it had taken him the entire night. Lloyd was shocked, since normally it would take 10 people 3 full days to get it done. Lloyd then told him that the leader of the Sky Wizard Division wanted to see him in the office during the lunch break. After that, Kanata hurried out of the storage room, hopped on the train, and got off at ground station. As he walked toward the office, he accidentally bumped into Miss Aura, who was rushing past him. Miss Aura scolded Kanata for not paying attention, and in the confusion, his hand pressed against her chest by mistake. Embarrassed, Miss Aura blushed and asked if Kanata was implying that she looked flat. Kanata did not deny it, which made Miss Aura even more upset, and she called him disgusting. To make things worse, the bread with jam Miss Aura had been eating spilled onto Kanata's pants. Miss Aura looked disappointed because her breakfast was ruined, and she demanded that Kanata owed her for it. Kanata found it strange since his pants were now stained with jam, and he thought she should be the one apologizing. Miss Aura explained that she had barely slept, so she was in a hurry, eating on the way just to make it to practice on time. As Kanata stood up, the bread slid off his pants. Miss Aura, still annoyed, shouted for help and told people that there was a creep nearby. But when she turned back, Kanata had already disappeared. At that moment, Kanata was busy trying to wash the jam off his pants, but the red stain looked hard to remove. He then noticed Rico smiling at her own reflection in the glass window of a nearby building. Curious, Kanata wondered what she was doing. Their eyes met, and with full confidence, Rico asked if her beauty had already mesmerized him. Kanata dismissed it as just another one of her eccentric habits. Rico teased him back, calling him a stalker, and Kanata replied that she was simply weird. Rico proudly claimed to be the reincarnation of a goddess, which explained her beauty. She warned Kanata not to fall in love with her, saying that the only person allowed to adore such beauty was Rico herself. Kanata dryly suggested she should take a break from admiring herself and use that time for training instead. He noticed the uniform she wore and recognized it as the Sky Wizard student uniform. Rico told him that she disliked exhausting activities like training, especially those that made her sweat. Then Rico suddenly realized Kanata was standing there in only his underwear, and she was shocked. She accused him of being indecent and asked why he would even remove his pants after looking at her. Kanata explained that he had already taken them off earlier while trying to clean the jam stain. Riko, still flustered, was stunned that he had been walking around like that the whole time. She screamed, calling out to others and saying that there was a creep right in front of her. Once again, Kanata vanished before anyone could see him, running straight into the restroom to hide. Meanwhile, some female students in the changing room were chatting about rumors of a suspicious person wandering nearby. Kanata stepped out of the restroom, frustrated that he had been labeled as a pervert twice in one day. Just then, he accidentally bumped into Lekti near the restroom. Seeing Kanata standing there only in his underwear, Lekti's face immediately turned bright red. She stammered nervously, reminding him that this was the girls' restroom, and with a trembling voice, she asked if Kanata really was some kind of creep. Kanata quickly denied it. Kanata made his way to Freyan's place, thinking that maybe he shouldn't have taken the shortcut through the preparation field. Not long after, 2 male students spotted him and called him a traitor. When he finally arrived, Kanata ran into Yuri, who also called him a traitor. Kanata asked if Yuri was still holding a grudge against him. Yuri said she had stopped wasting her time thinking about him since to her, remembering Kanata was pointless. Even so, Kanata insisted that Yuri was still holding on to it. That annoyed Yuri so much that she almost lashed out at him, but Chloe quickly stepped in to hold her back. Yuri told Chloe to let her go, explaining that she wasn't carrying a grudge and she wasn't trying to start a fight. She claimed she was simply stating facts, but Kanata still treated it like a grudge. Frustrated, Yuri stormed off and 2 male students nearby laughed at the scene. Chloe warned Kanata not to act that way, since it could make Yuri angry, but Kanata admitted he actually hoped she would get even angrier with him. Chloe questioned why he would think like that. Kanata explained that Yuri had joined because she wanted to be with him, and he was sure she was still hurt. Since Yuri had never been good at controlling her emotions, maybe it was better if she let them out once in a while. That incident had happened more than 6 months ago. At the time, Yuri had been unconscious and never witnessed it herself, and Kanata had also been badly injured. He said that the only person who ever comes out of battle without a scratch is someone who doesn't have the skill to be there in the first place. Chloe admitted she felt responsible for what had happened, so she offered Kanata a good deal. Seeing Chloe smile as she said it, Kanata was convinced that it meant trouble. Chloe brushed off his suspicion, saying she trusted the leader of the Sky Wizard Division. Chloe then led Kanata to meet Freyan. Freyan called him a traitor who still dared to show his face. Kanata admitted he hadn't actually planned to come, but Chloe suddenly smacked him lightly to shut him up. Freyan explained she hadn't called Kanata there to lecture him. Instead, she wanted him to take responsibility and become the instructor for Fireteam E601. She told him to teach this struggling group so they could fulfill the school's mission of training Sky Wizards capable of pushing back the threat of the beetle-like demons. Kanata wondered why it had to be him, when there were plenty of others available. Chloe explained that everyone else was already assigned for the season, and besides, she personally wanted Kanata to do it. She said she knew how hard he worked behind the scenes, like helping out with logistics when nobody was watching. Kanata agreed to at least read the file, but when he looked at it, he was shocked to see how terrible Fireteam E601's results were. Meanwhile, the members of Fireteam E601 were having a discussion. Misora suggested they start training, but Riko refused, saying that a goddess like her didn't need practice. Misora scolded Riko, accusing her of going against her authority as the team leader. Just then, Lekti looked nervous as she tried to speak up. She said something had happened to her earlier that morning. At the same time, Kanata was walking through the school corridor. Other students who passed by recognized him. Everyone knew he was from the regular division, and most of them considered him a traitor. They wished he would just stay away from them. But to their surprise, Kanata casually asked them where the Fireteam E601 room was. The students mocked the group, calling them losers. Back with the team, Lekti admitted she had run into someone unsettling earlier that morning. Riko said the same thing had happened to her. And then Mizora added that she too had met a creepy person who had spilled bread and jam on his own pants, which she found disgusting and humiliating to even recall. Instead of solving the mystery, Riko and Mizora started arguing, and Lekti tried her best to calm them down. Not long after, Kanata entered their room. He introduced himself as the instructor of Fireteam E601, explaining that he was a second-year student in the regular Sky Wizard Division and that he was 17 years old. Mizora immediately recognized the name and labeled him a traitor. Riko said she had also heard about him, while Lekti was confused and asked if Mizora really knew him. Mizora confirmed it, calling Kanata both a well-known traitor and someone suspicious. Riko and Lekti agreed with her, convinced he was the same unsettling person they had all run into. The three of them instantly activated their weapons and pointed them at Kanata. Kanata stood there, baffled at why they were calling him that. For context, Miss Gun was a floating city dedicated to training Sky Wizards. It hovered about 3,000 meters above sea level, with a population of around 6,000 people. About 90% of them were wizards like Kanata and the others. A long time ago, humanity was forced to abandon Earth because the land had been overrun by armored insect-like demons. People moved to floating cities to continue their lives, and the city came to be known as Miss Gun. Riko considered herself to be a star in Miss Gun. That day, Kanata entered Fireteam E601's room and introduced himself as their new instructor. Misora questioned why Kanata had become their instructor, but Kanata told her not to worry about the details and instead encouraged them to move forward. Misora was convinced that Kanata couldn't read the data properly and also carried his usual shameless attitude. Kanata recognized Misora's name as a second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division. She was 14 years old, her class performance grade was D, her practical training grade was E, and the review report even recommended that she voluntarily withdraw from the academy. Misora argued that her abilities couldn't be measured by test results alone, but Kanata didn't seem to believe her. Misora blushed under his gaze, unable to stand it any longer, and quickly walked away. Riko remarked that Misora was just a low-level student, which explained her poor grades. She then tried to introduce herself to Kanata, but he already knew about her. Riko was also a second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division with an A in classroom grades. However, because she missed her homework, her practical training grade was marked as an F. Normally, E was the lowest grade, but for some reason, Riko had received an F. Riko admitted that she couldn't leave her hair messy, so she had skipped it. Kanata then pointed out that Lekti was another second-year student in the Sky Wizard Preparatory Division with equally poor grades that rivaled Misora's. Her practical exam results were unstable, as she would win and lose against the same opponents. Hearing this, Lekti felt guilty and apologized. Just as Kanata was about to begin teaching, Misora voiced her objection, saying she didn't want a so-called traitor instructing them. Lekti, confused, asked why Kanata was being called a traitor. Misora explained that about 6 months earlier, Kanata had fought against several insect demons and managed to escape unharmed. But ever since then, he had been seen as a coward, frequently skipping missions and missing important ranked matches where his team should have earned an S rank. After repeatedly disappointing people's expectations, Kanata earned the nickname of traitor. Misora said she couldn't allow someone so irresponsible to be her teacher. Kanata replied that Misora was free to voice her complaints to the head of the Sky Wizard Division, then asked whether she felt embarrassed because she had never won a first-rank match. Misora told him not to underestimate her. She admitted that she felt ashamed, but she still wanted to become a great Sky Wizard and didn't want to waste her time. Riko argued that Kanata's remarks about her were inaccurate. Despite her young age, she had already been praised as the reincarnation of a goddess and her abilities were more than adequate. Lekti added that she didn't want to skip the training either. Kanata told them that people used to call him the Black Sword Master Kronos, and as their master, he would train them properly. If they worked hard, they could reach his level of strength or even surpass him. He asked them to imagine themselves defeating fire teams ranked above them, contributing in a dramatic way to humanity's fight against the insect demons. Inspired, the three girls imagined how cool it would be to fight those creatures. Misora eventually agreed to be trained by Kanata, but Riko refused, saying that as a goddess she wasn't willing to sweat or work hard. Misora grew frustrated, pointing out that this very attitude was why Riko couldn't achieve good results. Riko countered that it was only Misora and Lekti who had failed to produce results. Misora challenged Riko to prove it, but Riko simply mocked her. Kanata asked if Riko's exam results had been graded by Freyan, but Riko dismissed the need for exams altogether. Kanata said he had never seen Riko's true abilities, so based on the data, he had to consider her at the same level as Misora. Riko, however, refused to accept being compared to Misora, insisting that a goddess like her could never be placed on the same level. Kanata told her to demonstrate her abilities during training. Riko warned him not to fall for her once he saw her outstanding talent. Kanata then asked Lekti for her opinion. Lekti, embarrassed, struggled to speak up. Misora encouraged her to look people in the eyes and say what she truly meant with confidence. But instead, Lekti lowered her head and apologized. Kanata asked whether she was apologizing because she didn't want to join the training. Lekti admitted that her apology was actually meant for Misora. Misora then pulled Lekti closer to Kanata, and with encouragement, Lekti finally managed to say that she wanted to do it and was willing to join the training with Kanata. That afternoon, Yuri and Chloe were chatting in the cafeteria. The female students around them admired the two of them for protecting the city. Chloe waved to greet those students, which made them really excited, and she asked Yuri to wave back as well. Yuri admitted she still was not used to being treated like that. Chloe asked if Yuri had gone back to drinking tea since coffee always seemed too bitter for her, and it looked like Yuri had not changed at all. Yuri then asked if Kanata was still considered on sick leave. Chloe pointed out that Yuri had already asked the same thing 6 times that week. Chloe explained that Kanata did not seem ready yet for a real mission, but for the moment, he was assigned as an instructor for an E-ranked fire team, and that had been Chloe's request. Yuri was shocked to hear that. She did not understand it, and in her mind, Kanata was not helping her fire team when he had the chance. Instead of supporting their logistics, he chose to go teach others, which felt selfish to her. Chloe reminded her not to speak poorly about Kanata. Chloe explained that keeping the peace was their duty as sky wizards, and she was sure Kanata felt the same. When Yuri asked how Kanata was doing at that moment, Chloe answered that he seemed to have started his lessons by flying through the skies. At that same time, Kanata was flying with Mizora, Riko, and Lekti. When he reached a good altitude, he stopped to begin the exercise. Mizora was puzzled why Kanata was using a flight device, while Riko also wondered why he did not just use his flight magic since the device had lower mobility. Mizora began to doubt his reputation as a Grand Master, saying that someone who could not even fly properly would not stand a chance against them. Kanata responded that his way of flying was simply the mark of a beginner learning the basics, which surprised them. Riko questioned why Kanata would choose such a basic program to test their skills, while Lekti just hoped he would train them seriously. Kanata then told them they could attack him with their alchemized arcana weapons at full strength. If they could defeat him, the training would end. With that, the exercise began. Kanata darted off at high speed, and Mizora confidently declared that they could defeat him. She immediately chased after him, and Lekti followed soon after. Riko was frustrated by how recklessly her teammates were rushing after a fleeing target without even a plan. Seeing Mizora chasing him, Kanata thought to himself that their team truly lacked coordination, though he admitted that Mizora's speed was not bad at all. He shouted back, asking if she really thought she could catch him alone. Mizora said she was certain, even claiming that Kanata should not be upset if she managed to land a hit. Kanata pushed his speed higher, but Mizora stayed on him, surprising him with her stamina. Before long, Mizora activated her arcana weapon, a magic sword cannon called Ragrid. She swung it toward him but kept missing. Kanata noticed that she was not able to make sharp adjustments if she only kept striking wildly. Mizora grew more exhausted but refused to stop. At that moment, Kanata prepared to fire a shot of his own. He sped up again, and Mizora assumed he was just trying to run away to avoid her attacks. Kanata praised her speed and stamina, saying they were actually quite impressive. Just when Mizora moved in for another strike, Kanata suddenly changed direction and disappeared into the clouds, leaving her confused and searching for him. Meanwhile, Lekti appeared behind Kanata, aiming her weapon at him. Kanata asked her what the name of her weapon was since it looked impressive. Lekti answered that it was called Amano Habakiri. Kanata was surprised, noting that she should have been able to land a blow if she had only tried. He encouraged her not to hesitate. Lekti began attacking, but Kanata was able to block her strikes. She was startled when she found herself too close to him, her face turning red before she quickly backed away and swung her weapon again. Kanata wondered why her movements had suddenly become inconsistent, asking if she was only stalling for time. Lekti attacked again, and Kanata realized her movements had actually become smoother. Her reflexes were quite good, but she kept making mistakes, most likely because she did not fully trust her own abilities. Kanata stopped her strike and told her that she had real potential. Embarrassed, Lekti pulled away and repeatedly apologized. From a distance, Riko had been waiting for her chance. She aimed her magical weapon, Athena, and fired. Kanata sensed the attack and managed to dodge, but the shot flew toward Lekti, who was standing near him. Kanata immediately pulled her aside and deflected the magical blast. Riko was stunned, realizing Kanata had actually reduced the strength of her shot before it could do any real harm. Kanata asked Lekti if she was alright, and she nodded. According to Kanata, it had been a good shot, and when an attack was too precise, it actually became easier to dodge. Riko wondered why that was the case, and Kanata explained that her aim was not bad, but her intention to strike felt as obvious as sending a telegram. He then asked if Lekti and Riko had tried combining their movements while flying. Lekti admitted that she had been very scared. Riko pointed out that Lekti's movements were smoother compared to Mizora's, who always seemed restless and scattered wherever she was. Because of that, Riko said it was natural for her to try sensing with Lekti in order to land better shots. Kanata questioned why, if Riko could calculate things so thoroughly, she did not seem concerned about her own teammates. Riko claimed that she was a goddess, uninterested in ordinary human matters. Meanwhile, Mizora kept shouting while searching for Kanata. She was annoyed and exhausted since she still had not found him. Later that night, while Mizora, Lekti, and Riko were changing clothes together, Mizora admitted she was upset because they had failed to catch Kanata, even though there were 3 of them. Lekti apologized, saying her skills were not good enough. When she noticed Mizora struggling to unfasten her bra, Lekti helped her. Mizora thanked her and said it was not her fault, admitting she might not have given Lekti any useful directions. Riko then commented that fire team leaders should be able to assess the battlefield properly, unlike what Misora had done. She also contrasted that with herself, who she described as beautiful. Misora became irritated by Riko's words. Riko told Misora not to feel down since it was only natural that she was taller and more developed physically, claiming that was what separated ordinary people from a goddess. Misora replied that she was not upset and that such things did not matter to her. However, when she noticed Lecty's figure, she was surprised and started crying, not believing how Lecty could be more developed than her. Riko reassured her that such differences had nothing to do with someone's abilities as a sky wizard. Misora was touched by her words, but at the same time, seeing both Riko and Lecty made her feel uneasy. What bothered her even more was when Riko playfully described Misora's body in a mocking way, which made Misora scold her. Lecty quickly tried to calm both of them down. Kanata had realized that Misora had a hot temper and often lost sight of her surroundings, while Lecty's lack of confidence caused problems whenever she faced enemies. Riko, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of Lecty, but the distance between her and her teammates was too wide. To Kanata, they were like puzzle pieces shaped oddly, but he thought it would be amusing if he could somehow fit them together. Riko, however, refused to accept Misora as the leader of the fire team since as a goddess, she did not want to be under Misora's command. Misora argued that she was the one who had started the fire team, so it was her responsibility to lead. Riko countered that being first in line did not automatically earn respect. At that moment, Lecty tried her best to calm the two of them down as they argued. Soon after, Kanata opened the door to the changing room to announce the next stage of their training. Unfortunately, he accidentally caught sight of the three girls and only their undergarments. In shock, they immediately activated their weapons and accused Kanata of being inappropriate. That day, the members of Fire Team E601 were in the middle of a special training session with Kanata. The training was tough as becoming stronger was never easy. During the session, Riko admitted that she had no intention of joining in because she believed herself to be like a goddess. She left the room right away. Misora tried to stop her, but Riko ignored her. Kanata told them to let Riko be on her own, then asked Misora and Lecty if they were ready for the special training. Both Misora and Lecty agreed to continue. Later that day, Kanata brought Lecty to a clothing store. With her face turning red, Lecty said that she had finished changing into the outfit Kanata had chosen. When Kanata pulled open the curtain of the changing booth, Lecty was startled. Kanata wondered why she was so embarrassed since she actually looked beautiful in the maid outfit. Lecty asked if it was really necessary to spend their fire team's budget on a maid costume. Kanata explained that the outfit was important for their training. Before leaving the shop, he told Lecty that her task for the day was to hand out flyers while wearing the maid outfit. Lecty was shocked, but she had no choice but to do it. That afternoon, Lecty began her task. When two students walked by, she tried to call out to them, but she couldn't bring herself to speak clearly. The students thought she was acting strange and walked away. Not long after, 3 male students came over. They were stunned to see her dressed as a maid and quickly surrounded her. The flyers scattered to the ground and Lecty politely encouraged them to take one. The students happily picked up the discount coupons and thanked her. Lecty was surprised that she had actually managed to hand them out. Meanwhile, Kanata asked Misora to find out Riko's weaknesses. According to him, everyone had at least 2 weak points, and even if Riko tried to act calm, there was a chance she had some surprising vulnerabilities. Misora seemed reluctant about this request. Even though she didn't get along with Riko, she didn't want to lower herself to spying. Suddenly, Kanata covered her mouth because he had noticed Riko walking nearby. In the process, he accidentally touched her chest and quickly apologized, saying he hadn't realized it. Misora was offended, especially when Kanata's words made it sound like he hadn't noticed anything because she was too small. Kanata urged her to stop arguing and follow Riko. That day, Riko went shopping for clothes. Through the reflection in the store's glass, she noticed Misora tailing her. She immediately approached and asked what Misora was doing. Misora was shocked that Riko had caught on so easily and wondered if she had some kind of special ability. Then Misora realized her reflection in the glass had given her away. Riko asked if Misora had feelings for her. Misora was at a loss for words and couldn't come up with an excuse. Riko told her she needed to shop, but Misora insisted she wanted to join her. Suspicious, Riko pinched Misora's cheek, worried that maybe someone had cast an illusion spell on her, since it was strange for Misora to suddenly want to spend time with her. Still, she allowed Misora to tag along. Elsewhere, Kanata was drinking coffee outside when Lecty approached and handed him a flyer. He asked if she had completed her task. Lecty admitted that at first she had been extremely nervous, but afterwards she managed to gain a little courage. Kanata then told her it was time for the second step, asking her to start working at the cafe. He walked away while Lecty insisted she couldn't possibly do it. Suddenly, several customers called her over to take their orders. With so many people waiting, Lekti panicked and shouted out for Kanada's help, saying she couldn't handle it on her own. That same afternoon, a young man named Real was walking while looking at his tablet, mumbling that most of the armored insects seemed to come from the Arcanar class. Without realizing it, he bumped into Yuri, who was carrying a drink. She immediately apologized as the drink spilled, soaking Real's pants. Feeling extremely guilty, Yuri apologized over and over. She quickly knelt down, trying to wipe off the spill. The stain didn't seem to go away, and Yuri grew flustered, unsure what else to do. To her surprise, Real's heart raced as he watched her, his face turning red. Yuri apologized again, worried the drink might leave a permanent stain on his clothes. Just then, Riko took the handkerchief from her, saying she could handle it herself. A moment later, Chloe called out to Yuri. Real told her not to worry and urged her to go meet Chloe. Yuri apologized one more time before leaving in a hurry. Real watched her go and only then realized he was still holding on to her handkerchief. That afternoon, Riko went to a bookstore and bought a philosophy book. Mizora asked if Riko was really sure about buying it since the book looked boring. Riko thought Mizora probably didn't understand the joy of pursuing truth yet, and she even called Mizora a child. Mizora admitted it when she was told that. Then Riko invited Mizora to the next store. Mizora didn't expect that Riko still hadn't finished shopping. After that, they went to a doll shop. Riko absolutely loved the sheep doll she found and hugged it right away. Mizora had only just discovered that Riko liked cute things. Riko looked embarrassed and quickly took the shopping item from Mizora's hands. Riko said they needed to use their time efficiently. Mizora began to wonder if Riko liking cute things could be considered a weakness. That afternoon, Lekti was serving customers, but a few male students started teasing her with uncomfortable comments. They laughed, which made Lekti feel very embarrassed, and she quickly walked away. Lloyd saw everything and recognized Lekti as Kanada's student. At that moment, Lekti sat alone, saying she couldn't do it. Suddenly, Mizora arrived and asked what Lekti was doing there. Lekti immediately hugged Mizora and cried and told her everything. Mizora couldn't believe the kind of special training they were getting. Lekti asked if Mizora's training was more normal than hers. Mizora laughed and admitted it. She said she was willing to help Lekti if needed, and that made Lekti happy. Not long after, Mizora changed into a stylish bunny girl costume she didn't expect Kanada had prepared. Customers were surprised by Kanada's plan and how Mizora looked. One of them placed an order, and Mizora gladly served them with a friendly attitude. The students ordered iced tea and iced coffee. Lekti felt nervous seeing the students staring at Mizora, making her uncomfortable. Lloyd called Lekti over to pour water. She poured it into his glass, but her hands were shaking. Lloyd said it seemed like talking to others was difficult for Lekti. Surprised, Lekti accidentally spilled a drink, quickly apologized, and wiped it up. Lloyd told her that when she found something difficult, that was exactly where her weakness lay. He encouraged Lekti to trust her instructor. He also reminded her she had a good friend she could follow as an example. Mizora was serving customers cheerfully and efficiently, working hard, and it amazed Lekti. Just as she wanted to thank Lloyd, she noticed he had already left, leaving a tip on the table. Soon after, another customer called her, and Lekti prepared herself to work as hard as Mizora. Freyon saw the group of male students and asked Chloe what was happening. At that time, Mizora and Lekti were working smoothly and confidently. Lekti even looked more enthusiastic than before, to the point that Mizora asked what happened to her. Lekti admitted she felt more motivated because of Mizora. Mizora didn't quite understand what she meant, but she was happy to hear it. Seeing them, Freyon commented on how impressive the two waitresses were and even looked forward to what Kanada planned to do next. That evening, Mizora and Lekti met with Kanada. Mizora questioned the kind of training Kanada had been giving them and asked Lekti to voice her concerns. Lekti asked if Kanada knew about her social anxiety, and Mizora was surprised by her question. Kanada explained that Lekti's sword style was the Art Eisenach, a twin magic sword style created by the master swordsman Albert Eisenach. Lekti was shocked Kanada knew about her family. According to Kanada, only those who had gone through strict training and proven their true skills could carry the Eisenach name. If during yesterday's fight Lekti had looked into Kanada's eyes, it would have been a much more interesting match. Unfortunately, she couldn't do it, so she wasn't able to show her true ability. Lekti admitted she couldn't make eye contact or go to places where many people were watching her. She would get nervous and fail to do things properly. She confessed that she hated that side of herself. Kanada told Lekti not to worry about it because no one was ever completely satisfied with themselves. He gently patted her head and explained that at that moment, Lekti already knew what she needed, and the rest was simply about trying her best to improve. Lekti smiled, her face turning red, while Mizora also patted her head and encouraged her. Lekti felt so grateful to Mizora because thanks to her support, she was able to push herself harder. Kanada then asked Mizora how she had handled the training he gave her. Misora admitted that she had failed because she could not figure out Riko's weaknesses. She says she was surprised to learn that Riko actually read difficult philosophy books, even though she also enjoyed funny and lighthearted things. Kanata praised her, saying she had made progress, and then went to buy some ice cream. Misora wondered why Kanata said that when in her own eyes she had only failed. Soon after, Kanata gave the ice cream to Lecty and Misora as a reward for their hard work. Both of them happily ate it and really enjoyed it. Misora admitted that she did not know much about Riko, let alone her weaknesses, and she had not even realized that Lecty had stage fright. Because of this, she felt like she had failed as the leader of the fire team. Kanata reassured her by saying that she had learned something through the experience, and that itself was progress. He then asked Lecty to try the same kind of training she had done that day, and she agreed. Misora also agreed to keep observing Riko, but Kanata explained that the purpose of the training that day was to make Misora realize her own weaknesses. Overcoming those weaknesses, however, required a completely different kind of training, and he wondered whether he had failed to make that clear to her. Misora grew frustrated and, without meaning to, dropped her ice cream on the ground. She then cried over her ice cream being wasted. That night, Kanata was sitting in front of his computer when Chloe suddenly floated up behind him. However, Kanata had already noticed her presence and scolded her for entering the boys' dorm at night. Chloe simply smiled, saying she only wanted to do what she used to do in the past. Her eyes then wandered to a photo of Misora, the rabbit-eared girl, displayed on Kanata's computer. Kanata explained that Misora's reserve of magical power was greater than most rank of wizards, but unfortunately she was terrible with the sword, which made her waste much of her potential. Chloe then asked what Kanata planned to do in order to teach her. The next day, Kanata met with the members of Fire Team E601 and asked Misora to stop focusing on the magical sword cannon formation. Instead, he suggested she should position herself to support the magic cannon from mid-range because she had no natural talent for swordsmanship, while her flight magic and magical reserves were far more impressive. Kanata said his goal was simply to make the best use of her abilities. Misora refused to do that, saying she did not care, and even if it could make her stronger, she would not change her path. Kanata told her to stop being selfish, since the magical sword cannon was unbalanced, outdated, and too difficult for a beginner to handle. Misora denied being selfish, saying she was simply doing her best, but still rejected the idea of moving away from the sword cannon style. Kanata said that no matter how hard she tried, putting effort into the same approach would only produce the same results. Misora realized she had misjudged him, since she thought Kanata might have been a capable instructor. In her eyes, Kanata clearly did not understand her at all, so it was better if he stopped telling her what to do. Frustrated, Misora stormed out of the room. Seeing this, Lecty immediately ran after her. One day in the past, the Beetle Demon army returned and the Sky Wizards were already standing guard on the front lines. They complained about the overwhelming number of enemies they had to face. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward with courage and incredible skill, raising her sword against the swarm. She swiftly dodged the Beetle Demon's attacks and struck them down one after another. Even when a giant Beetle Demon appeared and launched its attack at her, she continued to evade. Once her sword was fully charged with magic, she unleashed her powerful technique, Strike Blaster, destroying the giant Beetle Demon's body in an instant. With that, the rest of the Beetle army was wiped out. This woman was admired and relied on by many. Her name was Sochi, the mother of Misora. Since childhood, Misora had always been proud of her mother's strength. But at that time, all she could do was miss her, because Sochi had already passed away. When Kanata asked her to change positions, Misora refused. She wanted to be just like her mother and had made up her mind not to give up. That same day, Lecty went into her room to deliver some coffee. When the door opened, she was surprised to see that the one who had ordered the coffee was Lloyd. Lloyd praised Lecty for her hard work, leaving her stunned. Inside the room with Lloyd were Chloe and Freyan. Freya noticed the girl who had just brought the coffee and pointed out that she was a member of Fire Team E601. Freya then asked if Lecty was still training like that. Chloe suggested that if Freyan was really curious, she should ask Kanata directly. However, Freyan doubted he would answer so easily. After delivering the coffee, Lecty walked down the hallway and saw Riko stepping out of a room. She quickly caught up to her and invited Riko to join their training. But Riko, who often called herself a goddess, flatly refused, saying she had no time for sweaty practice sessions. Lecty explained that Misora hadn't been coming to school for several days, so she didn't know what to do alone. Riko brushed her off, saying that as a heavenly goddess, she didn't concern herself with such trivial problems. Hearing this, Lecty said it seemed she would have to rely on Kanata instead. Riko assumed Lecty was placing too much faith in someone she still considered a traitor. Lecty admitted she had been worried at first, but now she understood that Kanata truly meant to take their training seriously. Meanwhile, Real from the regular division's medical department was sitting on a park bench. He was practicing how to return a handkerchief to Yuri and properly thank her. Before long, he noticed Yuri walking up to Kanata. Yuri pointed out that Kanata had been training the girls for several days. Kanata was surprised she knew about that. Yuri explained that it was obvious since Fire Team E-601 hadn't been assigned to practice in the airspace, and it was easy for her to notice. Kanata responded that maybe it was better that way. Yuri grew frustrated, pointing out that Kanata was the only one on the special fire team with free time, and she worried that he might betray Fire Team E-601 too. Kanata said he needed to head home since he didn't have time to spare. Yuri insisted their talk wasn't over, but Kanata still left. Real, who had witnessed everything, started trembling and accidentally dropped the handkerchief without realizing it. Later that afternoon, Kanata visited a small cafe looking for Mizora. As soon as he walked in, the shop owner greeted him. Kanata explained that he wasn't there as a customer. Mizora, surprised, asked what he was doing at the cafe. Kanata was relieved to see that she was safe. Mizora, however, expressed her irritation toward him. The cafe owner immediately scolded her for being rude to a guest. Mizora told her father not to interfere with her business. Kanata was surprised to find out that the cafe owner was actually Mizora's father, Gail, since the two didn't look very much alike. Gail laughed and said Mizora resembled her mother. Mizora frowned and hurried into her room. Gail apologized to Kanata, saying their family wasn't perfect. As Kanata noticed a framed family photo hanging on the wall, he complimented Gail's wife, saying she was beautiful, and it was true. Mizora did look just like her mother. Gail said that the only thing left of his wife was that photograph. While talking, he served the specialty of his shop, the famous steak. Kanata explained that he did not come as a customer. After tasting the steak, he immediately praised the dish. Gail laughed and mentioned that steak had been the favorite meal of his late wife. He then shared that his wife, Soki, was once a sky wizard. At the same time, Mizora quickly changed her clothes and left. Gail talked about how Mizora had been skipping school for several days, but he admitted he could not bring himself to scold her. He asked Kanata if he knew what was going on with Mizora. Before Kanata answered, he asked Gail why Mizora seemed so obsessed with the canon-style magic sword. Gail became convinced that Kanata was not just a casual acquaintance of Mizora. Kanata then admitted that he was Mizora's instructor, and his job was to give her the chance to grow stronger. Gail explained that people used to call Sochi the greatest canon-style magic swordswoman in the floating city where they once lived, but one day, Sochi left for a mission and never returned. Since then, both Gail and Mizora gradually began to lose their memories of her. Mizora wanted to master the canon-style sword because she did not want to forget her mother. At that time, Mizora went to a place full of ruins, activated her weapon, and promised herself that she would never give up. In the past, there was a day when Mizora had been overjoyed to welcome her mother home. Sochi had missed her daughter deeply and lifted Mizora high into the air with excitement. Gail confessed that he often worried about Sochi and could barely sleep at night, even when he tried to nap during the day. Sochi admitted she often felt lonely and could only comfort herself by eating multiple times a day. Their reunion was filled with warmth, and soon Mizora found herself happily standing between her parents again. When Mizora asked her to stop, Sochi playfully teased her daughter. Not long after, the neighbors gathered and mentioned that they had watched a live broadcast of Sochi in action. They praised her for destroying an entire army of Beal demons and expressed their gratitude since, thanks to her, their city of Iris remained safe. Mizora felt a strong sense of pride in her mother's abilities. When they returned home, Gail cooked steak for breakfast, but Mizora thought the dish was too heavy for the morning meal. Meanwhile, Sochi had trouble managing house chores and even flooded their home while trying to do laundry. Mizora was surprised at how poorly her mother estimated the water level. When Sochi tried cleaning, she accidentally damaged the wall. Mizora scolded her out of frustration. Soon after, information arrived that a group of Arcanar and Chimera-class beetles had begun to attack. Sochi immediately prepared to leave. She said her farewells and got ready to head into battle. Mizora felt heartbroken, since they had only just been reunited. Her face showed such sadness that Sochi almost could not bear to leave. Gail gently patted Mizora's head to comfort her. Mizora then asked her mother to be careful while working. From that day, Mizora continued waiting for her mother's return. When Sochi finally came home, Mizora was overwhelmed with emotion, cried tears of relief, and hugged her mother tightly, as if she never wanted to be apart again. That night, Sochi took Mizora flying with her. Mizora was excited and commented on how small their city looked from above. Sochi pointed out their home from the sky, explaining that even though the houses seemed tiny, many people were living there. She told Mizora that her duty as a sky wizard was to protect the people in the city, as well as to keep Mizora and Gail safe. Suddenly, a warning came from an airship instructing Sochi to stop. Mizora remarked that they probably needed a permit to fly. Sochi realized it too, but chose to escape playfully instead. The next morning, Sochi was about to leave for work again. Misora asked her mother to always be careful. Gail promised to cook steak for her when she returned. Sochi then said goodbye, and Misora kept cheering her on. Inspired by her mother, Misora began practicing sword techniques, hoping to show her progress to Sochi when she came home again. Misora met her father, Gail, who told her that he had prepared some boiled meat for her. But Misora asked about steak, and more than that, she wanted to know if her mother had not come home yet. To her surprise, Gail answered that Misora did not have a mother. Misora immediately left and started asking people around the town about her mother, but none of them knew her at all. According to them, Misora and her father had always lived alone together, and no one had ever heard of a sky wizard in Iris Town. Not long after, two officers arrived carrying a sword. They explained that Sochi had tried to protect everyone. She had gone forward alone against the enemy. She was the strongest and known as the noble cannon-type magic shooter. Misora remembered her mother's message that she would fight to protect the people, as well as Misora and her father. Misora took hold of the sword and promised that she would become a sky wizard like her mother. At that time, Misora was training alone. She wondered why she could never win, and she kept striking down the iron target in front of her until she finally fell. She kept questioning why all her efforts never paid off, but she refused to give up for her mother's sake. Soon after, Kanata came to her. Later, Kanata and Misora visited the Hill of Hope, the resting place of fallen sky wizards. Kanata had heard that Misora visited this place every day. Misora was sure that her father had told Kanata about it, which upset her. She felt that Kanata was intruding into her privacy. Misora even said that both Kanata and her father were the worst. Kanata asked her not to blame her father because since she had never spoken about it, her father had been worried. Kanata asked why she was so fixated on the cannon sword, and that was why he had chosen this place. He wanted Misora to swear at her mother's grave to give up on the cannon sword, because she could never be as strong as her mother. Misora grew angry and told Kanata to stop acting like he knew everything. For her, when the cannon sword was entrusted to her, it also meant her mother had been entrusted to her. Yet everyone else, even her father, did not remember her mother. Misora felt that a traitor like Kanata would never understand. Kanata then asked what she thought hope truly was. Misora said it was to protect the people in the town. But Kanata explained that the fallen sky wizards did not want to be forgotten, and what they truly wanted was to protect the ones they loved. That was what allowed them to face the demon beetle army, and surely Misora's mother had felt the same. Kanata asked Misora if her mother's purpose as a sky wizard had been for the cannon sword itself, or to protect people. Earlier, Gail had told Kanata that when Sochi died, he felt nothing, and he feared that if Misora died, he might also feel nothing, which terrified him. Kanata told him that if Misora stayed stubborn, her risk of dying would only increase, and in time, people might forget her. Misora realized how selfish she had been, but she still refused to give up. She wanted to protect people with the cannon sword. She believed that if she could become a great cannon-type mage, something impossible like the natural recovery of lost memories could happen, and she could be the first to restore everyone's memories. That way, she would not die in vain. Seeing how serious she was, Kanata laughed, admitting he never thought Misora could be this reckless. But he liked people like her. Because of that, Kanata decided to give her some guidance on how to become a better cannon-type mage. He understood how strong her determination was, but he warned her to be prepared because the path she had chosen could be worse than death itself. He asked once more if Misora was sure about taking that path. Misora firmly stated that she was ready to face any risk. Kanata then asked her to work hard for Sochi and for the sword, and to swear that she would become a cannon-type mage even greater than Sochi, strong enough to protect the people and herself. As her instructor, Kanata would help her bear the burden. That was why he wanted her to become stronger, and Misora agreed. The next day, Misora and Lekti prepared for training. Misora apologized to Lekti for making her worry. Kanata arrived and asked them to begin right away. Lekti immediately flew high into the sky. Misora looked at Kanata's face and shyly thanked him before leaving. Kanata could only smile at her. Meanwhile, Rika was watching them from below, and it seemed like she was starting to take interest in Kanata's way of teaching.